Let's take a look at the Maya interface. Now I have Maya open, and when you first look at it, it looks a little daunting. There's a lot of buttons and a lot of controls here. That's because Maya can do a lot of different things. But let's go ahead and just go through this one step at a time, and you'll know where everything's at, and it won't seem so daunting. Now, as with any application, Maya does have a text-based menu bar along the top, and we have standard options here such as File, Edit, cut and paste, that sort of stuff, modify, create, a create menu that allows you to create different types of objects, and so on. Now, once we get to the ones here on the right, these are actually ones that can change. For example, right now we're working with animation. We have a pull-down menu here which actually changes part of that text-based menu. So, for example, if we are working with animation, we leave it here, and all the animation tools come up. If we are working with polygons, which means modeling, then we change that, and all of a sudden this menu changes. Notice how this menu changes when we go to surfaces, which is NURBS-based modeling, and rendering, and so on. The top line of Maya is not big enough to hold everything that Maya can do, so you have to kind of break it down into tasks-based stuff. Now, another thing with menus is that they can tear off. So click on a menu here, scroll down to this double bar at the very top of the menu. I can just click on that and it floats the menu, which is kind of nice if you need to keep referencing a specific menu. I can also tear off sub-menus as well. So any of these menus can be floated, which will make things a little bit more efficient. Off to the right of this pull-down menu here, we have what's called the status line. And this has a number of different tools for selecting and moving objects, that sort of stuff. Each one of these are kind of divided up by these little segments here. Right here we have File, Open, and Close tools. And then here we have what are called selection masks. So this allows you to select objects by specific types. As I click these three buttons, we go into hierarchies, objects, and components. And then within each one of these, you'll notice how these menus change here. This allows us to turn on and off different types of objects. Let's say we were working in animation and we wanted to not select the joints of a character's skeleton, or we didn't want to select certain types of geometry. We can actually mask off that so that we are only selecting the objects that we really need. And if you get a very complex Maya scene, you'll see the value of masking off certain types of objects. Now, in addition to this, off to the right here, we have all of these magnet-based icons, and these are for snapping. So this will snap to a grid, this will snap to a curve, points, surface, and so on. And these toggle on and off. So if I keep these toggled on, I'm going to be snapping everything to everything, and so you don't want that. So let's make sure these are all turned off. Now, these here allow you to move up and down the stack. When we get into materials, we'll be using this a little bit more. Off here, with all these ones with the little clapboard icon, these are for rendering. So we can actually just render our scene just by clicking that. Obviously, there's nothing in the scene, so we're not rendering anything. Well, here we have X, Y, and Z type-ins. So if we want to, we can actually type in coordinates here. These control the attribute editor, tool menu, and the channel box. Now, all of these are just different ways to control the different parameters in your scene. And as we go through modeling and that sort of stuff, we'll be using these a lot. I just want you to know that they're here. Underneath this status line is what's called a shelf. A shelf is just a collection of tools, and they're more of a graphic representation of the different tools and functions available for Maya. Now, one nice thing about this is that you can actually create your own custom toolbars and create your own custom tools, which is very, very handy. But a lot of the tools that we're going to be using, we can actually access from these shelves. There are some standard shelves that Autodesk provides for these. Now, off to the left here, we have all of our move tools. If we want to move, rotate, or scale an object, they're all along here. These buttons down here control the different types of viewports and how we view those. Now, I'm on a screen that's a little bit small. There's actually some more menu options down here. And if you want, you can also get rid of these just by clicking on any one of these little tabs here. Now, along the bottom, we have the time slider, which allows us to work with animation, and also a range slider, which shows us how many frames we're animating. And then off to the right, we have the channel box or the attribute editor or the tools menu. So for example, if I selected the move tool, all of the options for the move tool come up here. If I go into the attribute editor and I create an object, all of the attributes for that object are here. Now the channel box actually has all of the controls for translation, rotation, and scale. So for example, if we're moving stuff around, we'd probably want to be in the channel box. Moving down, we also have underneath the channel box, we've got what's called a layers editor, which allows us to organize our scenes in layers. And then along the bottom, we have our play controls. Now we can also control how Maya looks just by going into preferences. So I'm going to go to Window, Settings, Preferences, Preferences, and bring up the Preferences window. Now in this, we can actually turn on and off any one of these UI elements. So for example, if you don't want this status line or you don't want to see your shelves, you can actually turn all of these off and make a very large window to work in, or you can turn them all on and have all of the controls around you. So one of the things that happens a lot of times is that you'll accidentally click here and delete some of these user interface elements and you'll wonder how to get them back. Well, if that's the case, then you just go again, Windows, Setting Preferences, and then you just go to your UI elements and you can turn them back on.